Hey guys, what's up? Ryan Dossey here, and I'm actually gonna roll by one of our rental properties. We just got our refinance on this thing. You guys aren't gonna believe how much money we made on this murder house. So this particular property was actually a deal that I bought from another wholesaler. Neither of us were aware that a murder had even occurred at the property until we ran into some problems about halfway through our rehab. So I get a call from our GC, and he says, Ryan, the guys are refusing to work on the property. What do you mean they're refusing to work on the property? They've already been paid on it. What's going on, right? So come to find out, about a year before we bought the property, there was a domestic violence situation that unfortunately ended in a murder. It was in the newspaper. If you Google this particular address plus murder, it pops up. Something that I now do on anything I buy. But the weird thing with this house is, I'd been there in the middle of the night by myself, never felt anything weird or uncomfortable. I'm also not super superstitious, so that probably helps. But we get a call that the kitchen was kind of built as an addition, and there's this nice hole that was smashed out under the into the brick to be able to kind of get into this crawl space area, which we unfortunately find out is where the police actually removed the body from. Well, we had to replumb the kitchen. So there's an access hole. You guys can probably see where this is going. And the contractors were refusing to crawl into the hole, was kind of how they were describing it. The only way we were able to convince them to do this was if one of the other guys would stand there and hold their feet. That way they could pull them out of the hole should they feel anything weird. So this particular area used to actually be pretty rough. I'm really not going to stop in front of the property because I'm in my Alpha, and I don't collect rent in a yellow two-door car. So tons of properties have been redone on this street. This red one actually used to be bright green, and kind of this stone one with the gray front, you saw briefly, is mine. Tons and tons of high-end remodels going on here. So we find out halfway through the rehab, unfortunately, the history of the property we bought. Called the guy we bought it from. He didn't know, and I fully believe that. Really good guy that we buy stuff from. We bought several properties from. Area is still kind of a little rough. You can't tell from a drive-by at 10 in the morning. So on this particular deal, we bought it from him for about $60,000. We put right at $45,000 into it. Refinished all the hardwoods, replaced windows, new HVAC, painted the entire thing. The whole reason I bought this property was it actually has a detached heated 8-car garage. So I was okay, this is gonna command a premium in rent. Don't know how much, but we should be able to do pretty well with this. Now at the time, rent comps were only $850. This was just a year ago. And I decided I was comfortable pushing it and going to try to get my 1.2% rent to cost ratio because we had the included garage out back. So we threw it out for rent at $1,550, thinking, hey, there's no way we're going to get this. Family actually wanted it who had a dog. Ended up leasing for $1,575. So it's cash flowed great the entire time we've had it. It is an older property, built 1890, so we've had some maintenance stuff. One of the somewhat comical ones was the family that's living there would turn the air conditioning up to about 80 degrees during the day, and then when they got home, they'd kick it down to 60, and they didn't understand why it wasn't getting to 60 degrees as fast as they would like. Had to kind of particular deal, we assumed when we bought it that with the garage, appraisal was going to be kind of sketchy, but a lot of gentrification, a lot of new builds, a lot of full-on guts going on in the area. Super, super hot area for wholesalers. So, just got our appraisal back on it. Property appraised for $225,000. Way better than I could have hoped for. So appraised for $225,000. The bank's going to give us 75% of the appraised value. So we're actually getting $58,000 tax-free just on our cash-out refinance. Now, on top of that, this property cash flows several $100s a month, and our residents are actually paying down the mortgage for us. And the cool thing with our refi is we actually got a 25-year AM, about a 5.5% interest rate from a local community bank. So financing came in like perfect. This is one of the reasons that I'm totally sold on buy and hold. You know, had I done this house as a flip, I probably would have made about $30,000 at the time. The guy who wholesaled it to me made like $5,000. So had I done this as a flip, I would have maybe made $30,000 and then had taxes, holding costs, all of that stuff come out. By keeping it as a rental, our cash out refi, which by the way is tax free, because technically it's not income, it's debt that we're being given, right? $58,000. On top of that, this property is cash flowed. After all of our expenses, CapEx, all that good stuff, we're still at like $2,500, $3,000 plus just this year in cash flow. Not to mention, it appreciated 40, 50 grand in the year we've owned it, and the area is only getting hotter, so that number's only going to go up. So, you know, what ended up being kind of a rough situation on a rough property ended up being an incredible payday. Now, obviously, we do way more than one of these at a time, but you can see if, you know, I was only doing one of these a year even, in targeted areas kind of with this potential for rapid appreciation, areas where there's new construction, massive remodels, that kind of stuff going on. I would have made $58,000 tax-free this year, not counting cash flow, not counting depreciation or debt pay down from my residents. So, you know, I hope this kind of gets the wheels turning for you. Also hope if you run into the unfortunate circumstance I did, where you find out you own a property that's got some stigma attached to it, you know, don't let that scare you off. You know, this ended up being a really, really good deal. The family who's at the property loves it. I am in a state where we're not required to disclose that. In some states you're required to disclose any deaths or unsightly events that happened at the property. I'm pretty sure in Indiana it's like only death that we have to disclose. So, you know, keep that in mind if you're in a state where you do have to disclose that, you know, that may be a reason to pull out of a deal. At this point, I already owned it, so even if I was in a disclosure state, nothing I could have done about it. But that's how we did on our murder house.